Ubisoft BAD, am I right? Yeah, that's right, Ubisoft BAD, everyone knows it. Now like and subscribe, and also give a bunch of thumbs up. Alright, if you couldn't tell, I was joking, but over the past week or so, there has been a lot of outrage over something that Ubisoft did, or maybe they didn't do. So that's what we're going to talk about, because maybe it wasn't so bad as we thought. Basically, there were some tweets saying and showing how Ubisoft would apparently delete your games if you had your account inactive for too long. So we can look at these. The first one, it pretty much went viral. It's like, this is horrifying. Ubisoft confirms they will delete your account and purchase games if you go inactive for too long. And obviously, if that's true, that would be insane. And if we go back and look at the original tweet that was a retweet of, it seems to kind of agree with that to be what's actually happening. You can look at the picture this person tweeted about an email they received. We notice you've not been using your Ubisoft account, and they're going to temporarily suspend it and permanently close it if you don't log in within 30 days, basically. And the person that tweeted this says, Ubisoft closes your account if you haven't logged in for some time. You'll lose all your games purchased forever. Now, if I had to guess, this wouldn't be the original person that received the email that sent out the tweet, because it's anti-DRM. Obviously, you know, it seems like an account specifically for anti-DRM practices. And the reason I mention that will be relevant in a minute. But basically, we see that Ubisoft responded saying, hey there, we just want to chime in that you can avoid your account closure by logging in your account within 30 days. Yeah, we already knew that. And selecting cancel account closure link. We certainly do not want you to lose access to your games or account. So if you have any difficulties logging in, please create a support case, blah, blah, blah. Now, on the surface, this reply from Ubisoft customer support does imply that you would lose access to your games, because that's what it says. We don't want you to lose access to your game, so do this thing to avoid account closure. So understandable to think that's what's going on. After this tweet went pretty viral, there was a lot of articles talking about it. One was from The Verge, and Ubisoft did make a statement where basically they said that if you have any PC games on your account, it will not be deleted. Now, if you look at the actual terms of service for Ubisoft, the country is going to matter here. In the US, there is no mention of an inactivity clause, but presumably that means they can basically delete your account whenever they want. In the UK, at least, and probably in the rest of Europe, it specifically mentions 6 months. However, it also seems that Ubisoft has stated that they won't delete your account if you are inactive any less than 4 years, and if you have any PC games on your account at all, they will not delete it. And Ubisoft does have help articles that specifically say inactive Ubisoft accounts with no PC purchases or active subscriptions tied to them may be closed in order to comply with data protection laws after long periods of inactivity, and specifically they're talking about GDPR. I'll come back to that. It also says accounts tied to an active Ubisoft subscription, PC games that have been purchased from the Ubisoft store are not eligible for deletion, so same thing. However, there was a PC World article in 2021 talking about a user who said that their account was inactive for 2 years and had games on it, and it was marked for deletion for inactivity. So this was actually a whole thing that was talked about 2 years ago, and Ubisoft, again in that time, is when they came back and talked about how they don't delete anything within 4 years, again saying the thing about not deleting PC games at all. They also mentioned that if this person did in fact get their account deleted within 2 years and had games on it, they would reach out to them because it's not supposed to happen. Now, this statement of 4 years does sort of conflict with their terms of service in Europe, because there it says 6 months, but I guess you could assume that maybe the 6 month is like giving them the option to, but in practice they don't. Also, in that article, Ubisoft mentions the GDPR law in Europe, which is basically the whole reason for this inactive account deletion policy, and they mention Article 5, Section E, and specifically the text of that law says, personal data shall be kept in a form which permits identification of data subjects for no longer than is necessary for which the personal data are processed. And then they have a carve out for additional scientific and archiving purposes, but it doesn't give any kind of specific time. But if we actually consider what this is actually saying, it says until no longer necessary for the purpose that it was retrieved in the first place. So what that would mean, I would think, is if you have games on an account and the person wants to be able to play those games, then it would require that they keep that personal data, which would be the email account. So I don't think that GDPR requires them to delete account data with games on it, and that seems to be in line with what they say they don't do. But say someone signs up for an account, doesn't use it at all, then what did they sign up for? Maybe no reason at all. And they could just delete that inactive account that had nothing on it. However, that wasn't where the story ended, because Ubisoft made another tweet, and this is the retweet of that went viral. It says, "It just keeps getting worse. Ubisoft now confirms that if your Ubisoft account is closed, you won't be able to play your games, even if they were purchased on Steam." And if this is true, that would be truly outrageous. So let's take a look at what happens. This person says, "If my account gets closed and I own games on Steam, can I still play them, or do you revoke my games on Steam too?" Ubisoft then responded to that, "Hello, we are not closing active accounts. However, if you decide to close your Ubisoft account, you will not be able to play our games even if you have bought them on Steam." Now, there are a few issues that you could address with this tweet that are separate. The first one I want to talk about is with the inactive thing. And basically, I think the original tweet by this Michael person is a bit disingenuous, or they didn't fully interpret what Ubisoft said. It says, "Ubisoft now confirms that if your Ubisoft account is closed, you won't be able to play games." But Ubisoft specifically says, "However, if you decide to close your Ubisoft account, you'll not be able to play the games." Now, I think given the context, it's not out of the question to interpret that as meaning if you have an inactive account that gets deleted because it is inactive, then you won't be able to play games on it even if you bought them on Steam, which does not seem to be the case and has never been the case, because they clearly always state that they don't delete accounts with games on it. Now, there's the separate issue, which you may have been thinking about, which is why, if you bought a game on Steam, do you need your Ubisoft account to play it? And if you delete your Ubisoft account, you can't play it even though you bought it on another platform. And that's a whole separate argument. I also think that is stupid, but that's really not the issue that all this outrage is about, which is the inactive account policy. So I'm not going to go there, but yeah, I think that's stupid. Now let's take a step back and look at the original tweets that kind of caused the outrage in the first place. Knowing all this extra information now, we see that this anti-DRM account said, "Ubisoft, close your account if you haven't logged in for some time, and you'll lose all your games purchased forever." However, we don't actually know anything about this screenshot. This account doesn't say that I got this email, and it seems like they probably are not the recipient of the email, because it seems like a specific dedicated account about anti-DRM, which this would be a subject of. So it's very possible that this account that will be deleted for inactivity in the screenshot has no games on it. There's nothing that suggests that there are on there. So I think the main problem is with this original tweet by anti-DRM that says you'll lose all your games purchased forever, which this email doesn't say anything. Nothing in their help articles say that your game will be deleted if you have PC games on there. It specifically says you don't. So I think this is simply incorrect. And then it kind of went crazy because of the response from Ubisoft, which then says, "We certainly don't want you to lose access to your games," which kind of does imply that you might have an account with games on it that could be deleted. But given what we know from all the statements from Ubisoft, it seems like this probably was just a unknowledgeable customer service person on Twitter who didn't really think about how that might be interpreted. They might have just said that we don't want you to lose access to your games, just kind of as a tag on, without realizing what that might have implied. And I think this retweet that is the one that went viral from this Michael person kind of is, again, understandable because of that response specifically. So I'm pretty sure if Ubisoft wanted to avoid this thing altogether, all they could have said was, "We don't delete accounts with games on it. This must be an account that doesn't have any games." That's what they could have said, and that would have prevented this whole thing. Now, one random thing I can add, I don't even know if this is relevant, but I found some articles talking about proof of purchase, and Ubisoft has a lot of articles talking about how you can find proof of purchase from various different other marketplaces, like on Steam and from Epic Games, and it seems like they would do that, I assume, to give you access to games that, for whatever reason, you don't have anymore. I mean, what other reason would they need that? So I would possibly suspect that even if accidentally your account was deleted, that there might be an avenue to get it back through some kind of proof of purchase. I don't know, that's total speculation, but it seems like that might be an avenue. I don't know. Anyway, I don't want to sound like a Ubisoft shill, but I just wanted to kind of mention this. Thought it was an interesting topic to talk about. Even I got caught up with it. I retweeted it saying how, this should be illegal, blah, blah, blah. But at this point, after reading more about it, seems like maybe it wasn't as crazy as I thought. Anyway, let me know down in the comments if you saw this tweet and got outraged and maybe now you're not as mad anymore or something like that. And if you enjoyed this video, definitely give it a big thumbs up, or if you think I'm some kind of Ubisoft shill, you can always give it a thumbs down too. If you want to keep watching, the next video I'd recommend is one where I was talking about how I almost got hacked. A malicious file actually tried to run on my computer, but luckily it was stopped by my paranoid security policies. So I'll put that link right there if you want to click it. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.